Well, that's the original seedling out in the field, full sun. It's one of those maples that seems to change every week. And last summer, I was going out almost every evening to see what it looked like today, and it was always, you'd sort of greet me, hey, how you doing? Look at me now. And so that's Jubilee. And I like the name Jubilee. It just kind of means a celebration or something. And it actually is a Hebrew word for trumpet, or ram's horn. So it shouts itself, I'm Jubilee. Yeah, Kinky Crinkle was interesting. It was another one where everybody was kind of, the workers at the nursery were kind of, I don't know, they just, sometimes they go through the motions. Seem like they're not really into it. And I said, okay, everybody stop work. I'll clock you out at 4:30. Stop work an hour early. Go see if you can find something out of our thousands of seedlings. And everybody came back with something. And I didn't really like any of them. But one person came up with Kinky Crinkle. Her name was Katie. And so I sometimes get mixed up and call it Katie Crinkle. But Kinky Crinkle, because Katie was kind of kinky. So that's the other two. And she was from Alabama, y'all. And she didn't last long at the nursery, but she found it, so it got her name. Tokyo's just another broad, upright maple, but its fall color is one of the best. And its story is kind of interesting because a famous Portland gardener who had maples and things saw this at the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo, which is called Kokyo. So that's the name of it, Kokyo. And in that garden are Japanese maples, as you would imagine. And of course, you can't cut anything or do anything. But about 30 or 40 years ago, I don't know, maybe things were a little more casual. And so she's kind of looking around, nobody's watching. And so she snitched some seed, put in her pocket, and brought it home, germinated it. So this was growing in her Oregon garden, very nice garden, actually a world famous garden. And so I asked if I could take cuttings off of it when I heard the story. And so I named it, but again, it's one I didn't find. Lilielle. Lilielle is a colorful little thing. That's in spring. And that was named after my youngest daughter's friend, Lily, and whose last name was L. And but not to give the full name out, I just called it Lilielle. So probably needs afternoon shade, but it can be very colorful in spring. See, maple collectors are always looking for something that's a little different, a little more wild than they've seen before. So that kind of fits the bill with that. Little Sango was a witch's broom mutation on a Sangu Kaku. So really, it's an improvement in the sense that Sangu Kaku, when they get large, you don't see the red trunk anymore. We have one that is, I don't know, 40 feet tall. And if you stand back quite a ways, 100 feet away, and look at the top, in the winter, you can see some red. But it's just, you're looking up at it, and your vision's competing with the sky. So it's really not that spectacular when it gets older. Thousands of them have been sold and planted in front of grocery stores, in malls. I've seen them everywhere. But I like Little Sango because you're looking at it, not up at it. So in the winter, the stems are really red. So to me, it's an improvement that it's more garden worthy. It's starting to go into fall color there. Well, that's the spring leaves. Really pretty with the light yellow, but then the orange border. Okay, another one that you won't see here yet, but I'm sure you will see it because Mr. Maple will swipe all that we grow, is Marmalade. And so it's the orangest of the seedlings that we've found so far. And as far as growth, it's like some other well-known calico, orange green, some of these early leaf out spring varieties, but the nice orange color. Even today, they're still orange, but they'll kind of fade to more yellow, green in another month when it gets warm. Now, a sister seedling to Japanese Princess, which is from Mikau Yatsubusa, is Mayday, which throughout the year has that blonde color. And I don't know botanically what these are called. They're bud sheaths. They kind of protect the growth before it comes out. And I like the way, like if you're at a distance and you see 100 of these red sheaths, they kind of speckle their way around the blonde color. So these are spring photos. Then this one is just a green spreading lace leaf. And it was an unnamed seedling. And at the time I had 3 Japanese trainees working for us. They come with these sponsored programs. They work for a year. They call them interns because when their year's up, you turn them in, you get another group. And I said, well, how do you say this in Japanese? It was unnamed. It's green and weeping. And they said, oh, ooh. They started talking with each other, and they went on and on. About 15 minutes later, I'm kind of like, I'm sorry I asked the question. So they came up with Midori no Teibuku, and which means green and spreading. And I probably should call it green spreader or something. But anyway, later, my wife, when she saw that, she goes, oh, okay. And what she meant was, that's really not how you would say it. That's a technical way of describing it. There's no poetry in Midori no Teiboku. So it's a bad name, but a great plant. This is mini lace. Those are very tiny leaves, and but kind of a bush form. What happens again, though, that if you have a seedling you like, these tiny little delicate leaves, very pretty, you graft it, and they're not quite so mini anymore. They're a little bit larger. So mini lace was described the original, but the others, they're smaller than normal, but not necessarily mini. MrMaple, that's the original in the field. Kind of like Blonde Beauty. They're similar without the labels. We'd mix them up. So labeling at Buchholz Nursery is a religion. You don't mess with it. You better know what the label says. Don't mix anything up. If a tree loses its label for some reason, out. We don't want it. We can't sell it. We don't know what to do with it. Maybe we rename it one of the Rising Stars, which means a group name. We'll sell it cheap to somebody. So labeling is very important. Miwa, another seedling. Mi, M-I, is the a Japanese word for beauty, and wa is peace. So I like the peaceful beauty name of it. I asked Haruko why the name wouldn't be Wami, why place the words in the wrong order? And she answered my question with, that's just the way it goes. So Nebula is a good, strong grower. It reminds me of Amber Ghost. And I was in a period of time where it's named things after constellations and stars. So that was Nebula. But a pretty maple. New growth coming out in the field outside. And another one that came from the same seed batch as Nebula was Pastel. And you might think, God, there's so many that look alike. Well, no, if you see them side by side, there's a pretty sister and there's another pretty sister. So who gets tired of yet another pretty girl? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so this is a seedling from Macawa yatsubusa. So it's not Macawa, it's a seedling from that sort of looks like Macawa yatsubusa. And it produced the witch's broom. So here's a seedling, and at a small age, produced this witch's broom. To this day, I don't trust Pinky without the green rootstock. So I keep it pruned, the green pruned back, but to nurse it along, I keep a little green on there. It starts out pink, but later it kind of bleaches out, and sometimes you'll see green specks in it. Well, that's Pinky. And by the end of the summer, it doesn't look so great. I leave the rootstocks on a little bit. So I had 8 or 10 of them, grafts, and they were the first grafts. And one time the crew was going to clean the rootstock off the maples. So in other words, you have gallon pot maples, and sometimes the rootstock comes up. You got to cut that off so it doesn't like take over the tree that you really want. And the crew got mixed up, and they saw the graft down below with the green rootstock up above. Now the green was being pruned, so it was nice and round, about the size of a softball, and the crew supposed that was the cultivar itself, was the green one. So they cleaned all the garbage off underneath. Well, they cleaned off the Pinky, and I was stupefied when I saw that. And I knew exactly what happened. I saw that about probably a month later after the crew was in there doing it. I couldn't believe it. They were all cleaned off. And so they did a bad job because one of them, they missed the bud and it resprouted, but the others were lost. So we're back to square one as far as producing it. Probably we shouldn't, because it's going to be a very difficult plant to grow. But that's the one that you all want, right? Now, purple curl, I wasn't keen on that so much. The leaf starts out kind of this orange purple, then it goes to a deeper purple, and the leaves are curled like that. But by August, it looks horrible. And so it wasn't my favorite, but then the more I started watching it, the more I liked it. I guess Mr. Maple thinks it's pretty popular, and so they sell it all over the United States, so who am I to say? Purple Ghost, you might see some Mr. Maple programs, videos of the first Purple Ghost that's still at the nursery, planted in display garden. And it was a seedling from an old variety, Japanese variety called Kasagi Yama, and which is totally out of favor now. Nobody really wants it or cares about it. It's in part because we have all these ghosts now that surpass it. And again, maybe Celebration surpasses Purple Ghost. Originally, it was in the garden, and since the parent, and this is before I started naming things, before I propagated. So I had the code name of Kasag DG92. Kasagiyama parent, DG means it's in the display garden, and 92 is the year I planted it, probably as a 6, 7, 8-year-old seedling. And eventually that became Purple Ghost. So and then one thing that's interesting is we had a customer, a longtime customer, who I was trying to explain to him, well, it's Purple Ghost. He goes, no, I don't want Purple Ghost. I know Purple Ghost. I think Kasag DG92 is far better. And I said, okay, yeah, that's a good one. Same tree, but you always let your customer be smarter than you. Well, here's, you'll see a few of these here, rainbow. And to me, it's the purple pink variegated one that's the most attractive when it's doing its thing. At our nursery, plants have to become an average. Like if we water and fertilize or do anything at our nursery, they lose their variegation, but it's stronger the worse the nursery we sell to is. They don't revert back to just purple, and so we haven't grafted any in a while. But every place I go, I see them, they look good. So then I'm thinking, okay, let's get back into it again. It may not be great for me in Oregon, but if it is for everybody else, okay. And I mean, you can just stare at the branches on some of the bigger trees we have, and on the original, it's basically a big purple bush, and then when you're looking at it, you go, oh, there's the variegation down there on that little branch. So for me, they're not stable. Red blush is great in the spring. That's a spring photo. That was introduced in 2002, unknown parentage. It's tough to keep track of maples, maybe not so much for me, but for my employees. And, they see things, and I don't know, they have their favorites. I have my favorites, but red blush look great. But by August, it's all kind of faded out, doesn't look good. Then fall color's great. So I think it's worth growing. Okay, that's the original Acer palmatum red cloud. And what's really kind of amazing, there was a seed flat of maples from Scolopendrifolium I talked about, and one became fairy hair. And it was on the edge of the flat. If it would have been in the middle of 80 or 100 seedlings, a flat's 18 inches square, it would have died out because it couldn't compete with the other seedlings that came up around it. But on one edge was fairy hair, on the other edge was red cloud. So that, to me, was just amazing that out of two trees, or one flat of maples, two trees became known. And so that was introduced way back in the early 80s. Redwood. I liked redwood. It was a seedling from Sangokaku, I think. And it was discovered by an Oregon nurseryman named Edsel. So I like the sound of it. Redwood from Edwood. And I got a call from the National Arboretum a number of years later, and they apparently planted two at the entrance, one on either side, but one died. And so they wondered if I had another one I could send to them. Well, I'd already kind of given up on it, so I couldn't oblige them. But I thought it was kind of interesting. In a short period of time, I went from my nursery to the National Arboretum, and where they had it no less at the entrance. Ruby Ridge has a rough rugose leaf, and it's kind of not attractive, I can't say, but in the spring it's one of the darkest black leaf maples, and it's an example of one that was in an acquaintance's garden, and he gave me the original seedling, and he was a landscaper, so he liked to putter around with maples. So he found the Ruby Ridge. We called it, at one point, his name was Dan Himes. He went on to own a very successful perennial nursery, but we called it Crumpled Leaf Himes, just a code name, Crumpled Leaf Himes. Well, that's no good, is it? And so I said, give it a good name. So he came up with Ruby Ridge. Oh, Shushidari. I like Shushidari. My wife named it. It means orange weeping. of the fall color is kind of an orange red, but Shu Shidari, vigorous, and its parent, believe it or not, an orange green lace leaf. Its parent was also amber ghost. So amber ghost, an upright with palmate leaves, produces everything. Bloody talons, Shu Shidari. It's really a good mother for finding interesting seedlings. Sister ghost, you wouldn't think that could grow outside in Oregon. Again, no humidity. We get over 100 degrees every summer, and that's out in full sun in the display garden. With leaves like that, you think that's impossible. Fall color goes from orange to red. That's the original Spring Delight, a selection that was from 1998. But there's a lot of named green lace leaves, but I like this one the best because two reasons. It's mine, and number two, it's more interesting than the waterfall viridis to me in spring. I like that red edge, and so that's Spring Delight. When you grow thousands, hundreds of thousands of maples, which I did in my career, you kind of get tired of the growers or nurserymen get tired of the blood goods. And we know why they're popular. Fire Glow, they're great maples. They're very useful and all that. But every once in a while you get something that's a different kind of red. I call that a plum red. And so Spring Plum is, I don't know, just one I like a lot. It was a seedling from Purple Ghost. And by the way, my plant introductions, it was 20 parts. They're not all going to be here, believe me. And if you want to know maybe a better story, I wrote it up. And Mr. Radio Voice, Sean, he's the guy that narrates this. And so he's got that North Carolina twang, but it's, you know, a great voice. I can't think of a better person to be narrating these things. Squiddy is interesting. It's very dwarf. It was a seedling from a friend. I'll call him a maple friend. I never met him. Harold Johnson from Alabama. And he said he's watching a couple of maples. He's going to send me one. And so he sent it to me. And he says, it's nothing. It's just a squiddy little thing. So I guess that's an Alabama term. Maybe you use it here in North Carolina. Just a little dinky, squiddy little thing. And so squiddy, huh? So I called it Squiddy. And then later, I was surprised. There it is, different shot. I was surprised because another one came on the market maybe 10 years after I named Squiddy, or it came to me anyway, as Abigail Rose. And I like that name better than Squiddy, obviously. And but that was a sister seedling. So they're not the same. They're two different seedlings. One was given to me and the other became Abigail Rose, which we also grow. Starry Skies. Again, I was in a celestial mode at the time. So Starry Skies. So it's kind of like that eye candy, Alpenweiss look to it. This is Strawberry Spring. And Strawberry Spring was growing out in the field with a lot of these others that became originals. And I liked it, but it was a real wimp. It actually had a lot of dead wood in the tree. It wasn't doing well. I don't know why. maybe the original itself was not very good, not very strong, but when we gave it green rootstock, it took off and turned into a nice, good-sized, strong tree. And somebody here I know bought it because I had to sign my name on the photo. Yeah, and it's become one of my favorites. Sweet Lorraine. Oh, Sweet Lorraine is just a lace leaf with various colors, but very delicate looking. Will grow out in full sun though. It's a cute little plant, and so got that name, Sweet Lorraine. Now here we are, Tiger Rose. That's not an original for me. It was the family doctor. Well, he got the maple fever too, and so he was collecting seedlings from his yard, and he came up with Tiger Rose. It had stripes, and his wife's name was Rose, and so he called it Tiger Rose. The rose part lasted a little bit on the original. I've kind of never seen the rose. That's a nice name anyway, Tiger Rose. In the literature, it's in the Vertrees Gregory Maple book. It says it has a weeping habit. Not at all. It's an upright, and they maybe saw a gallon pot that had new growth, so it's weeping. But it's a big tree. We have one next to the house we used to live in, so it's far larger than the original. In fact, it's at least as tall as the building here. What happened? Tiny stars. Again, you have to be careful when you name things tiny or mini or anything like that, because once you graft it, the leaves get bigger. So tiny stars, a nice little maple. I like it. I like the name, but not as tiny as I would have wished. Wave leaf is another one that I originally kind of dismissed, and visitors or customers to the nursery kept gravitating towards it. And what I liked about it's sort of a purple ghost, but the leaf had movement to it with the wave of the leaf, so it became wave leaf, and it's become pretty popular. But I didn't think it was worthy of naming at first, and basically my customers convinced me, oh yes it is. So it's much darker when there can be much darker than in this light here. That's the original that became yellow threads. In the spring it's more green threads, but as soon as the sun hits it by late June, July, it bleaches out to more yellow, and so yellow threads. And that's become one of my very favorites of all the maples. And the parent tree, the parent tree was Cotonoito, another narrow leaf form. So not surprising it would have an offspring like that. Cotonoito just more green, but this is more yellow. All right, that's kind of it for the Japanese maples, but Acer platanoides, this is really a freak. It almost looks like vegetable or something. Yeah. And then its fall color is pretty nice. Yeah. Rezik, there was a great plantsman, a late plantsman, Ed Rezik from the East Coast, and he was collecting stuff all the time. And even though there was no Norway maple platanoides in his yard, seedlings would come up, and some of them were these mutant things with the crinkled leaves and so on. And if he liked you, he would give you one. So he gave one to me, and I only met him one time, and wish I could have known him better. But its code name or temporary name was Rezik. I never really intended. I don't think it's a good idea to name plants after people. especially yourself, never do that. And but I called it Resig, and then eventually I gave one away. And so the horse was out of the barn. It had to have a name. One of Haruko's favorite is Bronze Age, and it's a Shirasalinum, and or more likely a Palmatum Shirasalinum cross. And it changes all throughout the year, but she can spot it out of 100 maples. There it is, and me too. And it's become one of our favorites. So it's not. There's just something different about it. It's not blood-good red or purple. It's just kind of this two-toned look with, at certain times, it's a bronze color. So that became Bronze Age. Another Shirasalinum that you don't think of Shirasalinums, the Japanese species, as having lace leaves. Well, at Buchholz Nursery, they do when you grow enough seedlings. And so that became Green Snowflake. Fall colors orange. One of my favorites is Joheen. So again, a likely combination with Palmatum Shirasalinum, but the seed rises above, so we go ahead and call it Shirasalinum. But just so you know, it's a probable cross. The name was given by Haruko. It's Japanese for elegant, and just had an elegant look to her. She's like me. She sees it, oh, how elegant. Huh? And so I go, is that how you say elegant in Japanese? She says, yes. Okay, that's its name. She has the sweetest fingers in horticulture, I think.
Yeah.
And then another one that she named is Shirasalinum Kauai. And it came from a professor of horticulture at Oregon State University. And he caught the maple fever too. And he started planting out 1 million seedlings, the late Jim Baggett. And whenever you take one home, he was relieved because, he had already moved on to other, but he was into hostas, then he'd be into bamboos. And then he'd go into, he's a professor. And he was most famous for his berry and vegetable crops that he would breed, crops that would do well in Oregon or Willamette Valley. And but he had all these seedlings, and I had the original seedling in the garden, a small little thing on the ground. It's kind of not weeping, but kind of spreading. And Haruko knelt down, and she was petting it, and Kauai, Kauai, she said. And I said, well, what did you just say? She said, so cute. So that's Japanese for cute, Kauai. You see how kind of goofy it gets with naming plants, and they just sort of come about. Matt's daughter said, how come you don't name a maple after me? So he did. We call it Daddy's Girl. So the thing about this is, first of all, you have a red lace leaf Shirasalinum. So that's unusual right there. And then a lace leaf. So it's really unique and slow grower, hard to make money on it, but it's really a charming maple. Cute. Mikado, I've seen a number of them here. Frankly, I think they look better here than they do in Oregon. And Mikado's means honorable, and Kado means gate, the gate of the imperial palace where the emperor traditionally held audiences. And so Haruko can explain all these things to you better than I can, so if you have questions, go to her.
Yeah.
But again, a Shirasalinum that's reddish, upright, and great fall color. That's it. That's the original tree in the autumn. So now it's unfortunately too closely planted to the Picea. I don't know what I'm going to do. So we graft a bunch, and if one of them has to go, then we have more. Or we'll dig it and send it to MrMaple. I don't know. Actually, I don't own it anymore, so I don't decide what we're going to do. tell me what to do. I like Mr. Sun, and that one was named because of the shape of the leaf. It's probably a full Shirasalinum, maybe not. You never know in an open garden what's crossing with what. I always say you never know what's going on at night at Buchholz Nursery. These maples getting together with each other, and but the leaf reminded me, if you ask a child to draw the sun, they make a circle and then they do like that. So it looked like a child's version of Mr. Sun. This is the original one called Plum Wine. Again, I'm kind of into plum colors now. And that's probably a full Shirasalinum. And its mother tree was another one called Shira Red, which I don't think I even put in this program. Maybe I did. But it's kind of a non-event, but it was one of the first of the red upright Shirasalinum. But Plum Wine I like a lot. And then a sister seedling was Purple Velvet. And the reason I kept both, even though they're similar, I suppose one might be better than the other, hold up in the sun, have better fall color. You don't know. So we named them both. We're growing them both, and everybody likes them both. So, so now we're stuck with both of them. This is Sensu, and the original seedling sadly died. It was planted in front of our house, and nice, good size, beautiful thing. In the afternoon, we had a breeze, and the leaves were fluttering like that. And I was out for a walk. BC. BC doesn't mean what you think it means. Before Christ, it means before children. And so, therefore, she wasn't tied up with two little kids. And we were walking around, and the wind was blowing in the evening, and she saw it, and she said, "Oh, sensu," because it was like a fan. So that's Japanese for fan. That was another one of the Jim Baggett maples. Oh, I did have, well, Shira Red was the parent to that. Oh, that's sensu in the fall. So great fall color. And then Shira Red was the upright Shirasalinum cross palmatum that was amongst the first. Another one was called Red Dawn, great name, but its seed hangs down. So I think there's more palmatum than Shirasalinum. This is the winner because the seed goes up. Otherwise, they look identical. A fairly new one's Yellow Canary. MrMaple's getting it in now. We'll graft all that we can do. It's kind of like an Orium. We don't know if it'll be better, stronger, sun tolerant. It's new. The leaves are a little fatter. It's different, but that's what happens when you own a nursery. You're looking for all these different things. Sadly, a failure was Joseph's coat. I sold a few, so maybe they exist somewhere. I don't know. And but Sterculiaceum is a species nobody can pronounce, and it comes from Latin, which means smell or odor, because the maple itself actually smells. I don't know what but because I don't smell anything. But that's why the species got named. Sterculia was the goddess of smell in Latin times, and but really what it meant was the goddess of agriculture, meaning manure. So Sterculia was the goddess of manure. I mean, you had a god for everything, right? Because you were dependent on your crops. So Joseph's coat I thought was a nice name, but sadly, the original tree kind of went to green. It's struggling. It produces seed. I'm tempted to plant the seed. Maybe I'll get something more stable. Every leaf's different. There can be. Some are all whitish yellow, and those usually burn. So I consider it a failure, but maybe its progeny will be better. This is a cute little thing, Acer Tataricum, subspecies Janella. Tataricum means the Tartar maple from northern China. But this little bush, that's, I don't know, 25 years old and 2 feet tall and wide. Perfect for the rock garden. And then it gets great fall color too. Then again, we watch maples. We pot up the seedlings. They're in seed flats, and it's almost overwhelming what you get out of that. And but you can see everyone, like there's 50 maples in there at least, and it's just a hodgepodge of color. And you go, I like that one. I like that one. Everybody who sees something like that, I don't know, I think in heaven, Mr. Maple will discover all kinds of things. So here's one with kind of a Panama toy lace leaf type look. Probably this one won't do because of the white. A little too much color. Who knows what that will amount to? This is a seedling from Japonicum aconitifolium, so your common green dancing peacock maple, and you get one with interesting spring growth. What's fun is, again, the Mikawa Yatsubusa seedlings. So we collect off of this enormous tree, and we've germinated thousands of them, and out of that, we've only named 2, but there other growers are coming up with Mikawa offspring, Mikawa type, with that same growth, but maybe variegated, things like that. That's a group of 50 seedlings, so they're all different, going into fall. But what we do when we germinate those seed is a percentage, maybe 25%, come out with Mikawa Yatsubusa type growth, short internodes, things like that. And the rest just grow upright, they're green. Again, who knows what pollinated each seedling. As Corbin, Mr. Camera there says, he says, every seed is like a lottery ticket, and you don't know what you're going to get. It might be the winner, it might not. And so I like that analogy. They're all fun, they're all interesting, but we've only named 2 so far. See, that almost looks like what I call Japanese princess, but it's different. Some are pretty wild. Some are pink, like Pinky, but stronger. Whoa, now we're getting some with variegation. How about that? These are actually in pots now. They're 2 years old. They're beginning their 2nd year. And so we're already watching those things. That's yet a different one. And whether that variegation holds or not, we don't know. We've got to watch them for a while. They have no names yet. We're waiting to see if we're going to grow it or not. Some of these might do well in the sun. Maybe a lot won't. Another named variety is Matsukaze. That's the one that the parent that produced Tiger Rose that my doctor found. One like that, you know. I'm so sad he's no longer alive to see some of these things. And yeah, I've got this kind of like this watchdog on my shoulder, Flora, saying, hey, Buchholz, you take credit for all these, but I'm the one who gave them to you. And so that's the end of it. That's the end of the program. Yep.